Hello, everyone. We are live once again, live from Seattle on a beautiful but cloudy day in Seattle. Hello to everyone all around the world who is coming in to join us in Satsang. Please say hello. Tell me where you're watching from, and if this is your first time experiencing something from me. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to put in my 2 hours work. Got my latte. So when you come to satsang like this, what is it you're looking for? What you come seeking? It's, our expectations shape our perceptions. So what is it you hope to gain from this? You don't have to tell me. You don't have to put it in the chat. Just bring it into your own heart. What's your deepest desire? I believe it's in the Hindu mythology, the mythological Kundalini yoga model of the chakras. One of the chakras is the wish-fulfilling tree. I don't remember which one it was now. But what is it you want more than anything else? So much so that you'd even be willing to let go of lesser desires to keep your attention on the main one. And I really want you to put that into your heart, because don't tell me what you think I want to hear, right? I want to be awakened. I want to know who I am, unless that's really it. We humans, especially these days, our attention is so distracted and diffused. So many things get our attention. So many desires arise. So many places we put our energy. And the human attention, the human being, has only got so much. There's only so much energy there. So using it conservatively, focusing it where it will have the most effect, obviously makes sense, right? I mean, when you want to know something or discover something, what do? You give it a lot of attention. If you're trying to learn a new skill or really master something like an art or a sport or some kind of technique, you do it a lot. It grabs all sorts of time, which is a form of energy, your attention, which is the focal point of energy. Everything else becomes less than, off to the side. Just give it up. I remember when I was in college and I was very serious about music. That's all I did all day long. I had some jobs I had to go to, some on the campus, some off, to make money to pay for it all. But I would other than that, I was either in class or I was in the practice room. I mean, literally hours and hours a day. That's all I did. I got good, right? Obviously, because it was getting all of my attention. As a matter of fact, I could tell when my attention would start to wander. I was a young man. There was a lot in college to make it wander too, right? I could tell because my rate of growth would slow. One of my teachers even commented on it. to me once when he could see. He said, what are you into? What are you doing? And he spotted it. Then I refocused my attention again. So what matters most to you? Because what matters most to you is what you'll find yourself giving attention to. As Christ said, lay your treasure, don't lay your treasure out, make a treasure on earth, because rust will get to it, moths will get to it, thieves could steal it. But make your treasure in heaven, where moths and rust can't corrupt it, and nobody can break through and steal it. It says, because where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That which we value most is what gets our attention. Little by little, valuing the truth of your being, knowing who you are, will become more important than anything else. It's not that other things are unimportant, right? Obviously, we have responsibilities, we have things we have to do, we have to make a little money, to take care of business and the like, right? But how much extra stuff do you need? In a world of just unlimited entertainment and distraction, how much do you actually need? What is it that matters most? Now, it's obvious to me you're in satsang because this matters. I mean, there's a million things you could be doing now, right? With your Sunday night, your evening, or afternoon, a million things you could be doing, but you've chosen to be here. This has more value than every other thing you could possibly be doing now. This is the earnestness, which is the essential ingredient in waking up. So many things distracting. It does take a focus of attention on yourself. Not the ideas of yourself, but the actual experience of yourself. And what is the actual experience of yourself but the sense of being? And that sense of being reveals itself to itself. In other words, you reveal yourself to you. The real identity of that sense of being comes into view. Simply because you've been standing at that door knocking on it. And just because you're knocking or ringing the doorbell, that isn't what makes it open. It's going to open on its own. There's no causal connection between the focus of our attention inward and some kind of a result taking place. And this is really, really important, because if you're doing a practice or an inquiry so that some particular result takes place, right? So that you can get enlightened or awakened or something like that, right? Then the practice itself will be secondary. The inquiry, right, will always be serving another purpose, and therefore one eye will always be somewhere else. The inquiry lives on its own merit. It is the sheer joy of looking at yourself, even when you're not awake, or even when your eyes are just beginning to clear. The actual looking itself becomes the pleasure in it, you might say. So I do recommend to people, while I'm not the kind that says you got to meditate 2 hours a day or become celibate or give all your money to charity or something like that. Because those are external moves. They really don't have any kind of effect whatsoever. We just have to become so more interested in ourselves than in anything else. Now, if that interest in yourself is towards the ego, you become narcissistic, right? So I'm not talking about that. In yourself, the consciousness that is aware even of the ego, that's aware of all the thoughts of the mind and all its activity. Doing everything you can to bring that, the seer, into view, is the knocking on the door. So I'm going to say hi to people now, and open the floor for questions. I didn't want to talk all that much today. Much rather hear from you guys. So, Penny, dear Sifu, lovely family, wonderful insight time. Hello, Penny. Roberto in a blizzard, a snow blizzard in Madrid. How about that? Lisa in Florida, no snow blizzards there, that's for sure. Rosario also in Spain. Sumakataj, South Africa, which it must be like Monday morning there. No, it's not quite that far ahead, but yeah, you're pretty far ahead. Different seasons too. Actually, we're in the middle of winter. You're in the middle of summer. Sarah in France. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Ava. Namaste to you. John Watson in Glasgow, Scotland. John Sheehan in Ireland. David and Elaine, South Chile, very chilly, Southeast England. Hello, G. Aaron from Canada. Always a great pleasure to listen to wise words with grace and gratitude. Good to see you, Aaron. Roberto, my deepest desire is to be happy with peace of mind. That's a good one. Yes, that's a very focused one. So now all you have to do is recognize that which brings you happiness and that which doesn't. All the thoughts and ideas and concepts and actions that seem to take away from that sense of well-being or happiness, right? Scrutinize it. If your goal is to be consistently happy, I'll give you a little secret. Consistent, permanent happiness is your nature. You don't acquire it. It gets revealed. And it gets revealed when our attention goes back to ourselves. Because we have to look where it is. It's not in objects. It's not in states of mind or emotional states. It's not in conditions. It's not in relationships. It's not in some substance. Okay? Those are all the places we've invested happiness, gone looking for it, under the assumption that I don't have it. You're walking around the house looking for your keys and they're in your hand. Or you're looking for your glasses and, and you have them on. But we've been so enculturated and indoctrinated to seek happiness outside, to pursue happiness, that we all live with and are born with the assumption that I don't have it, that it is some kind of a condition I have to establish. That is the great ignorance. That's the great illusion. We don't actually have to get happiness. We have to stop giving it away. We have to stop projecting it onto things, looking for it where it isn't. People say money will make me happy. I've never met a happy dollar bill, or sad, or afraid. it's nothing. It's an object of mind. Any qualities anything possesses are all coming from you, projected onto external circumstances simply by ignorance. And people will ask, okay, where do I find this happiness within? What I say is turn your attention towards the sense of being. Quiet, ever-present sense of being. And keep it there. For the sense of being is happiness. But as you do that, you'll see the habit patterns of the mind, constantly trying to invest it in something else. And frankly, our entire rather unstable economic system is based on the idea that happiness lies in the possession of some object or state or character or condition or relationship. Look for yourself. Is it there, or am I projecting it onto it? And this is an exploration you have to make on your own. Nobody can do that for you. You actually have to really look. I've given you lots of hints, trust the guru and believe him, right? And believe when the guru says there's nothing there, believe them. That's what Nisargadatta said. That's what Mooji said. I listened to all those guys, and it's not there. It is a projection of the mind. And we become very adept at recognizing and distinguishing the perceptions of our own mind and distinguishing them from what is actually real. So if I decide I have to have something in order to be happy, I have created an energetic belief that I am now going to experience. In other words, I'm going to experience the absence of happiness, sadness, tension, stress, and everything that goes with it, until I acquire that object. When I acquire that object, I then feel happy. And I ignorantly attribute the happiness to the object. What's actually happened is the desire for it has dissolved. And when the desire for it is gone, which is exactly what we want to fulfill, right? We want to end the desire and experience the fulfillment. When the desire is gone, we feel happiness. But it didn't come from the object. It came because in that moment, I gave myself permission to let go of the desire. And what did I find? Happiness, contentment. Simply the desireless state. And don't go try and getting rid of all your desires. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You only have to see them for what they are. You simply don't invest your happiness in them. Desires arise, they come and go. They're a part of life. But if I decide that I need the fulfillment of that desire in order to be happy, I have created my suffering out of ignorance. Bring it back to here. You need nothing to be happy. You need all sorts of things to be miserable. So we're really just kind of letting go of our belief that there is such a thing as an achievement or accomplishment or anything out there that can make me happy. Only I can do that, which I'm doing all the time. I'm just projecting it on things. I don't know why I went off on that, but there I did. All right, that's right. The deep desire to be happy. Yeah. To discover the happiness that is innate in you. That, in fact, is the one desire of all human beings. Does anybody get up in the morning and decide all the things they're going to do to make themselves miserable? There's nothing in our lives we don't do for nothing. We do everything because we believe it's going to bring us happiness. Our relationships, our work, our the extra stuff we do, our hobbies, our interests, our entertainment. There isn't anything we do that isn't for happiness. It is what we're all looking for. Right? And the beauty of satsang is to discover that it's already in you. It already is you. And this is the great cosmic joke. Nisargadatta put it, having never left the house, you're asking for the way home. Turn around. Turn around to see yourself. Forget about what results that might bring. Forget about the results, any results you might get from an inquiry, right? From looking at yourself. Right? What am I going to get out of this? Put all of that aside. Right? That's the mind making a business deal, right? Turning it into a transaction. All right, God, I'll worship you, but a little something for the effort. How about a little something for here? But it doesn't work. It doesn't work that. Fall in love with yourself. Fall in love with the process, with the act of inner exploration. And of course, anything you fall in love with, you just keep giving it your attention over and over and over again. It's effortless. Nobody has to make you do it. Nobody has to say, okay, you got to meditate 4 hours a day. Nobody has to tell you that. You don't need any encouragement to think about your beloved. And that's, again, in the chakra model, that's actually the deeper meaning of the third eye, the sixth chakra. It through the energy of the heart, it transmutes the energy of the second chakra, which is much more primitive, sexuality and desire and pleasure and that sort of thing. It gets transmuted into this overwhelming love for and desire for the beautiful, the beatific presence of the one, of God, of the ultimate. Everything begins to focus upward. Love this subject. Roberto, love you, brother. Lisa, hi, greetings from East Coast. Hi, Lisa, good to see you. Barry in Daryl, in Maryland. Where did I get Barry? Daryl. Roberto, I'm not looking for any awakening whatsoever, but to be at ease. Good. You don't need to look for awakening. It'll just happen. As Christ said, I come like a thief in the night. So be vigilant. You just don't know when it's coming. Aaron, Amakuja, a good question. The words that immediately come to mind are clarity, understanding, acceptance, harmony, perhaps to cultivate true expression. Very good. Very good. Yes, to cultivate true expression, which is what the whole human system is actually meant to do. It is to give form to the formless. It is to make the transcendent known, or the transcendent, the timeless, playing in the field of time. That's what this is about. True self-expression, which is what the fifth chakra represents symbolically, right? Don't turn it into a fact. Don't turn it into a thing. It isn't. It's an aspect of consciousness. Right? We speak into existence. It is the energy, the aspect of our being of self-expression. Now, who's the self that's being expressed? The false sense of self, the ego, cannot get clarity, understanding, acceptance, and harmony. It can't get it. It doesn't have it. It is innately unclear. It is innately unhappy. It is innately ignorant. It is ignorant that it even of its own existence, because it doesn't actually exist. It's the ultimate of ignorance. There's nothing there. It is a robot pretending to be a human. And there's nothing there. It is not sentient. There's no conscious awareness. The ego can never know acceptance. It can never accept itself. It is relentlessly comparing to others. That's how it even has a sense of self. Without an other, the ego does not know who it is. It's extremely uncomfortable, which is why solitary confinement in prison is the worst punishment somebody can get. The ego just freaks out because there's nothing to tell it who it is. The true self has no second. It is completely self-referenced. It doesn't look to anything outside of itself. And in so doing, it is itself the very essence of clarity, of self-acceptance. It is completely, because it's one, it is completely internally consistent. And therefore it is the home of harmony and beauty, which are the fragrances that emanate from the transcendent timelessness. That expressing itself through the human form, right, is the sage. That is the Buddha. That is the Christ. That is the energy of true being appearing as a human form. The sage is not a person with wisdom. It is wisdom appearing as a person. It is God taking human form. And that is true self-expression. And that doesn't dismiss, diminish, or throw out at all the individual characteristics that each one of us has that makes you unique from me. The same self manifests itself in countless forms. There's no limit to the shapes it can take. You're one of them. I'm one of them. These plants are a bunch of them. The fire and the candle next to me. The cup, the almond milk, the coffee, the lips, the tongue, the body. Everything unique in all the universe. It is that light of invisible, timeless being that is penetrating through and seen in the manifest form. And the way it does that is individually. The universal always expresses itself in the particular, because if it isn't, it's the universe. It's the infinite, right? There's no form for the infinite. Form has to appear within the infinite, but is of the nature of the infinite. So the individuality is not lost. In fact, it's liberated, because it's no longer serving the interests of the egoic mind. It is serving the interests of the true self, which is quite literally the true meaning of devotion. The entire system is devoted to the truth of you. The truth of you, the true self, the only self. Do you know of any self other than yourself? You can't even be sure I exist, can you? Right? I'm just this guy on your screen. I could just do a really good job of CGI. You really don't know anything about the nature of the external. You only know you. The only self you know is you. Well, folks, that is the self. That me is the self. That is God. That is the Buddha. It is that which is hearing my words right now, that which is cognizing, knowing itself. What else could know the self but the self? What else can know consciousness but consciousness? Something else, not consciousness, couldn't know anything. It is simply a mistaken identity, thinking that the self, that is the self, is this body, this mind, this ego, these beliefs. That identification, which arose all by itself, nobody's guilty of doing that. Nobody chose it. It arose all by itself, right? Obscuring that. And so the mind is always thinking in terms of the self, in terms of the image that it holds of you. But that's not the self. That's an image. There's no self there, is there? Like the robot acting like a human, right? There's nobody there. But you are the self, aren't you? And it's the only self you know. That self, the one and only self you know, that is what I invite you to pay more and more and more attention to the point where it so absorbs you, very little else is interesting. Very little else even appears on the radar because it's so absorbing. Lovely. Anne, good to be here. Oh, so good to see you, Anne. As always. Roberto, GP, I'm doing that EFT that you taught me, and I think I've been going through no acceptance to anger with myself. Good. Very good. Why would I say that? Why would I say that that's good? Because no acceptance, if you're looking at it from the point of view of the progress in your nervous system of coming more and more into genuine acceptance, a genuine harmony with your life, which means out of fear, by the way. You'll find that there'll be layers of things that, using EFT, and I'm doing a whole bunch of EFT for the next 2 weeks for folks, just kind of help with all the stuff that's going on these days. When you start with that, you may find a malaise, just kind of a lackadaisicalness, right? You could find a lot of sadness, right? And even layers of it, right? There could be just kind of a malaise. And as you work through that, the malaise just kind of goes away, and then a genuine feeling of sadness begins to arise. Okay? You don't have to detect it. You don't have to say where it came from, but there it is. And just stay with it. You don't have to, explore it. You don't have to analyze it. You don't even have to know where it comes from. You just be with it. That's it. Right? A feeling you weren't allowing yourself to be with before. And then oftentimes what'll happen is that something else will come up, like anger, resentment, right? Some bitterness, right? Some ways it's the other way around. The anger, and underneath that is the sadness. There's no particular order this stuff has to go in. But that anger is a more active energy, obviously, than sadness. You're touching on a part of you that has some righteous indignation behind it. Right? Now, that anger may start being aimed at you, but stay with it, because it's probably not really. Right? Oftentimes, we'll feel depressed because we don't want to feel what's underneath it, because we've never really been allowed to feel it. right? We feel sadness, right? And sadness is we can swap out that emotion and put in sadness. When you're a little kid, you're sad if your parents are really hard on you, right? Consistently, right? Um, and you're not allowed to get angry with them. You're not allowed to even hold a different opinion than they are, right? Then anger cannot be expressed. So it gets squashed, and what replaces it is just kind of a malaise, a sadness, right? You just kind of, it's like resignation. It's like you give up. So eventually, when that anger does come out, it won't be towards them, right? That's not allowed for the little. You'll be angry at yourself. You'll find you'll even see this in kids. They do something wrong, like, I'm so stupid, right? Sometimes it can be very, very extreme like that. Other times it can just be more subtle. But you'll notice there's this tendency to blame themselves, right? When in fact the parents needed a good dose of anger, but of course, as a child, you can't give it, right? So you stay with it. Okay, anger is coming up, self-anger, right? Now, when you start feeling that anger towards yourself, why aren't I better, and things like that, right? Your mind immediately tries to want to make you better, right? Just notice it, stay with it, right? Don't jump into the narrative. Don't go along with the story about it, right? Stay with that feeling of self-anger. Just be with the feeling. And my sense is it will eventually transform itself into a much more directed anger, right? From something deep in the past where you simply were not allowed to do it, so you turned it on yourself. And of course, we can only endure so much of that, so we have to suppress it. This is just how the whole system works, and it's fascinating. It's utterly fascinating how we can get stuck in these habitual patterns that aren't really ours, right? And the entire time, always remember, no matter what emotion is coming up, it's appearing to you, right? You are always more than whatever you're feeling. You have to be. And of course, you'll notice that an emotion is there, it'll be very, very intense, but then it will dissipate, it'll go away, right? It fade away, maybe quickly, maybe it'll take a while, but it's not there all the time, right? But what is there all the time? Well, you are. Now that's something to notice, because while all the emotions are going up and down, there's something that is not going up and down that is absolutely rock steady. Well, this is you. This is the true self that is witnessing all the activity and all the turmoil and all of this stuff coming up. And it's because it is the true self that's witnessing all of this stuff coming up. Right? It's never touched by that. The system itself is purifying itself, becoming a worthy vehicle for the expression of the actual infinitude of your nature. Here's to the joy of being, says Amir. Karan says, hi, GP and everyone from Alabama. Hey, Karan. Roberto, it's been almost impossible for me to disconnect the mind while doing EFT. It's like my mind keeps saying, okay, whatever. But you have been a fool in your decisions anyway. So what I would do with EFT then, I would take what the mind says and I go right into it. So even though I've been a total fool on all my decisions and I deserve all the crap I'm getting, I love and accept myself anyway. Take it and run with it, amplify it, make it bigger, right? Don't try to fight the mind. I can't make the mind be quiet. No, you're not going to be able to. You can't stop the wind, right? You can't push a wave back out to sea. You don't control thoughts and their flow. We don't create them, right? We can't control them. We can't stop them, right? People who try to practice stopping the mind, it never succeeds, right? And those yogis who do master it, right, it starts right back up again once they come out of samadhi. Right? So that's not the solution. Right? You don't have to stop it. Right? You have to change your relationship with it. You have to stop being intimidated by it. Right? And we're intimidated by it. We want it to go away. We don't want this thing in our head saying, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. Look at all the terrible decisions you've made, one right after another. Right? What do you do with that? You can't ask it to be nice. Oh, come on, give me a break, will you? And the mind's going to go, okay, all right. You've been good. I'm going to let you off. I'm going to go away for a week. I'll come back. It doesn't do that. It doubles down, right? It makes it worse, right? So what I do and what I teach people to do in the EFT coaching is take that. That becomes the source. That becomes what you put all your attention on, and you voice it as if it is the absolute gospel truth. You're right. I'm a total doofus. I don't deserve anything. I make nothing but one foolish decision after another. And I have to accept that. That's the truth of me. Now, notice, your mind's going to get a little confused because you're not arguing with it anymore. If you're not arguing with it, you're not giving it any energy. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, especially to people of the positive psychology ilk. I've even had people. I've done EFT events live, right, with a group of people, and I've had people walk out, right. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not letting that stuff into my mind. I go, madam, it's already in your mind. Stop pretending that it isn't. But sometimes they won't have it. They're out, right? It's like, too bad. I say, stick around. It's going to sound really weird, maybe intimidating in the beginning. It'll get better. But some people just, they won't do it. They won't. They're stuck on this. They're stuck in the battle with the mind, thinking somehow they're going to get the mind to behave. It's like doing a ritual to conjure up the devil and then expecting him to, be on good behavior, right? Sorry, it doesn't work. Or summoning the shark, right? Come on over, let's play, and expecting him to suddenly become a vegan. It isn't going to happen. Understand the mind. Understand what it is. Patterns of thought, nothing more. So when you agree with it, the whole nervous system gets a completely different message. Right? Now an energetic assumption that is being manifested in the nervous system. Right? So you could say that nervous system believes that, in fact, you make foolish decisions. That's all you have to do. We have to keep you from making foolish decisions. We got to keep you scared. We got to keep you, right? Right? And you're saying, no, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. And of course, it's impotent. But instead, if you completely switch sides, right? Take up their side of the debate, what happens? There's no conflict anymore. That absence of a conflict is the signal to the nervous system, it's safe. That's the concomitant, I forgot how to say that word. Complement, I guess, to the tapping, which is communicating safety through touch. So if you drop your argument and even turn around and start voicing it, elaborate it, take it even further than the voice is, watch what happens to the voice. What's it going to do? You're not playing with it anymore. You're not playing catch, right? The ball just drops. Try that out, Roberto. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's such an important point, and it's one of the things that the way I do AFT, which is different than anybody else, because I emphasize it so much. I put so much on it. I'll stay there for a while, and usually by the time it's done, the nervous system itself is beginning to think that this idea is a little off. Well, maybe it's not really true. By the way, I am starting a new coach training, EFT coach training, at the end of the month. In 2 weeks from tomorrow, I'll be taking applications for it. If I can get all the web work done today, I'll start taking applications tomorrow. So so that's it. Um, I'll let you all know about that. Just make sure you're on my mailing list so I can let you know. Oh, and also, the 10 days of tapping starts tomorrow in the private Facebook group. I'm trying to do events just for the people in the private group, just because I don't know, do something special to help, just help with the community. This is open, obviously, to the public, but other things I'd like to do about, um, maybe a little bit more in depth. Anyway, it's Facebook/groups/GP Walsh, like everything else. So if you haven't joined my Facebook group, do, and you'll be getting other stuff from me as well. But that starts tomorrow, and in that tapping, I'm going to start with the big one. I'm not enough, I'm lacking, that kind of stuff, those kinds of fears, and then it'll be open. I've already got some people who've made certain requests for certain things to tap on, and I will try to tap on everything I possibly can over the next, 2 weeks. It'll be 10 days, Monday through Friday, weekends off, because I do this. So join me there, Facebook groups/GP Walsh. It's 10 p.m. in South Africa. Oh, okay. So you're not that far, because it's right. It's not that far east of us, right? It's just way south. You're heading into summer. Andrew, GP, have you come across David Hawkins? If so, I wonder if you have any thoughts on his map of consciousness. I think it's a very good map. I saw the same thing in the Sedona method, the AgFlap, apathy, grief. Yeah, I mean, he makes the same kind of thing, that it's better to be angry than to be apathetic, right? If you don't feel there's any direction you can go, if it feels like every single door is shut, you can fall into apathy. You can just, it's not worth it, right? And so therapeutically, getting to a place where there's some anger, there's some actual energy that can go into change, right? Now, from a non-dual perspective, when all the doors and windows are blocked, when you've completely run out of moves, you don't go into apathy, you go into inquiry. You simply go completely within yourself. Right? It's the invitation, right? It's kind of a forced invitation, right? An offer you can't refuse, to turn within, because there's nothing out here for you. The paths are all blocked, right? And so you sit even with all the blocks, all the feelings, everything. It really can be a most marvelous opportunity to turn within. Therapeutically, the map works beautifully, and you can tell. I think I even said it was talking to Roberto about that getting that place of anger is a better place than the feeling of just total non-acceptance, which just is an energy suck, right? But you can take it even further than that. But I quite like Dr. Hawkins. I've seen some of his videos and the like, and of course, well, he's a psychiatrist, right? He was a medical doctor and so a psychiatrist. So I would have expected to have him like that, but he also had an enlightenment experience, and so he saw the end of he saw through the egoic mind, and that was his way of helping people move out of the identification with the false self and into the sense of who they really were. My way of doing that is the process I call inner reconciliation. It's similar. I don't have a map like that. I've seen, I think Abraham Hicks and Hicks even have one of those, a map of emotions, that kind of thing. So it's very valid. But like all of them, I always tell the people, any kind of system like that, it has its uses, but don't get wrapped up in it. So I'll hear people go, okay, well, I'm at Pride now, so it turns into like a process, like they're just trying to walk up a ladder. You don't have to. You can get a jetpack and go all the way up to the top. You don't need to go through all of that. So people can get actually stuck in the process, right? And the mind likes that because the mind doesn't actually want to arrive at the end, because at the end there's no mind. It really wants to keep engaged with the process, right? So it'll keep you seeking for lifetimes. It doesn't want to find. To understand that, right? Because in the finding, the mind, the ego, is no more. So that's my caveat on that kind of things. So don't turn any of these, any model into the actual territory. It's not. It's just a means of getting there. Once you know the territory, you don't need any maps at all, right? You don't need a map of your hometown. So, Jay, hi G and everyone from Sacramento. Hey Jay. Addison, hello from Beantown. Hi, I'm Boston. Yay. Or Adelson. Good to have you here. John M. Hello, John M. Hey G, Happy New Year. Curious on your advice. After realizing yourself as consciousness, how do we deal with other negative judgments of the person, with others' negative judgments of the person? Well, recognizing yourself as consciousness doesn't instantaneously remove all vestiges of the false self from the whole energy system, right? Oh, I wish it did, but it doesn't. But it doesn't, right? So how do you deal with others' negative judgment of the person, right? Well, first off, is there any reaction in you to their negative judgment? Does something feel hurt, slighted? Is there any kind of resentment? Look first to see if there's any kind of reaction whatsoever. Because whatever is reacting is not consciousness. Consciousness is aware of the reaction, right? But it's not actually creating or participating in it, right? So there is a reaction in the system that wants to, some kind of thing. If somebody says something and it stings, there's a feeling in the system, right? Now, if you just stay with that feeling, right, and don't make it personal, right, then you're just dealing on the level of the nervous system, which is simply programmed to react in a certain way. The moment I say I'm hurt, that stings, right? I've created in that moment someone who could be hurt. Otherwise, it's just a neutral reaction in the system. And if you see it that way, all of those reactions will eventually dissipate. Right? Pay really close attention to the way the mind is recreating a sense of identity. Right? And it is from the position of consciousness that you can see that. Otherwise, you can't. Right? For most, in our ignorance, the sense of identity happens so fast, we're in it. We don't see it happening. So as consciousness, knowing yourself as consciousness is like the sky. It is completely unaffected by the storm. No matter what comes up, it is not touched. If that's me, then I am not touched, which means any kind of reactive pattern in the nervous system does not have an owner. Right? If I create an owner, that's the egoic mind, and I'm creating it. It doesn't actually exist. It's just a thought. And so now you really can use this as a way to deepen your view, deepen your understanding. And you can also bear in mind that, remember, somebody's negative view of you isn't a view. It's the image of you they hold in their head. And their image of you they hold in their head is mostly them. It is the idea of a separate self projected over there. I'm a separate self, so you're a separate self, and this separate self doesn't like that separate self. Now, you just step to the side, just watch this tennis game going on, because it has nothing to do with you. And you can be completely free of it. You're not even there. They are talking to themselves. They're in their own dream. It is exactly like our night dreams. You have a conversation with somebody in your night dream, and they're answering back, right? And it appears as though it's a conversation between two people, two friends, two enemies. You wake up and you go, my God, there was nobody there. It was all me. And now you see that what's happening in the mind of the one who with the negative vibe, right? It's all within their own mind. You just step aside. It's not touching you. They're nowhere near you. They can't see you. They're only looking at a picture in their own mind. This is what all of us do, actually. And let's take it even deeper. Right? The idea of there being somebody out there throwing negative energy at you is also just in your mind. There's nobody there. Step out of your dream. There's no one but you. The image you're holding of them, right? Just like they're holding the image of you. Step out of the dream. There's nobody there. Really ponder that. That's not an easy one to get. I get it. If it was just too confusing what I just said, forget about it. Just go back to the other one. Thank you for that, John. Jay. Hi, dear Jay. How's the little one? Gee, how do you translate the relationship between Arjuna and Krishna to real life? Krishna seems to tag along with Arjuna wherever he goes and with everything he does. Yes, right? The guru, the true guru, is always there. For those of you who are not familiar with that, he's talking from the Bhagavad Gita. Jay is Indian, grew up in that culture, in the Hindu culture, right? So very familiar with that. I mean, it's one of the main books of the Hindu culture. And Arjuna was the disciple of Krishna, who was the guru, right? And they formed this relationship. And remember, the book is mythological, right? Did any of the events in that take place? Who knows? Probably not, right? They were there to illustrate, right? Not to document, right? They're symbols of the transcendent. We have to remember that on all genuine religious writing, it is a symbol, right? And I think it was Carl Jung who defined the difference between a sign and a symbol. A sign points to something here in this world. The symbol points to something beyond, in the realm of the transcendent. Because in the transcendent, it's beyond categorizations and opposites. So we can't talk about it. We can't talk about the ultimate. I cannot talk about what you actually are. Because it's one without a second. So there's no reference point. It is completely self-referent. It is one. How do you describe one without referring to two? You can't do it. That oneness is what Krishna represented. And Arjuna represents the human being with his desires, his fears, and his duties, right? Social duty is, especially in the East, is extremely powerful, right? It's extremely important. The three temptations of the Buddha were fear, desire, and social duty. A whole lot more weight than it does for us here in the West. We kind of pay lip service to it, right? Which means I'm going to sing the national anthem at I got to take care of my family and stand up when I sing the national anthem, stuff like that. It's pretty trivial. Most of our devotion is towards economics and business and the like. Not so, right? So Arjuna is you, right? Of course, so is Krishna, but we'll get to that. So tagging along with you throughout your entire life, whether you know it or not, whether you ask him any questions or not, is the Krishna energy, the energy of the guru. But the word guru means one who brings light. It can be a book, it can be a video, it can be something you hear, it can be a laughing child or a flower, it can be a sunset, anything that brings your attention back to yourself, dispels the darkness, right? is the guru within, right? And at certain points in our life, that guru who is always with us manifests in the form of a person, an actual guru, when you are ready to sit at the feet of the master. When the energy has reached the heart chakra, right? You are now ready to sit at the feet of the master and transcend all of the egoistic and animal instincts. So Arjuna represents the real authority, right? Excuse me, Krishna represents the absolute authority, the truth that is always with you, right? And in that scene where in battle, Arjuna is in the back with his arrows, and it is Krishna who is driving his chariot, right? In the humbler position, right? The warrior is the big shot. The driver is in the humbler position, and he's in his reins are 5 horses. Right? He's holding the reins of the senses. It's an absolutely beautiful image, and eventually, in Arjuna's case, he submits to his duty, right? Whereas in Buddha's case, he did not. Yeah, he said no, and he went on. Arjuna didn't go on to become Buddha. Siddhartha did. Does that answer it for you, Jay? Hello, Anja. Hello from Germany. I love listening to you, dear G. Thank you for the wisdom and constant reminders. It's the only sane island left. Lots of love. Yeah, it's kind of nuts out there, isn't it? Let me switch feet here. Yeah. Ah. Yeah, I don't stand up as I watch my 4-year-old daughter, leap up, right? No matter what position she's in. It takes me a minute to get up and join her. So yeah, the world's a bit nuts. Is a bit nuts right now. So there is an underlying pool of sanity that is coming to the surface. Right? It's here. It's supporting us, right? Even when we can't see it, the Kali Yuga, which is what in Buddhism and Hinduism, the Kali Yuga is the last period. There's epochs, right? Periods of time, 25,000 years. Anyway, it gets down to the Kali Yuga, the Kali Eon, which is only supposed to be 500 years long, and it's supposed to happen 2,500 years after Buddha, which is now. So we're in this period, or 2,000 years or something like that. We're in the period of the Kali Yuga. And Kali is a beautiful Hindu god. It's always, we see her mostly, and it's a she, we see her mostly She's solid. She has solid black skulls around her neck and that sort of thing. She's a destroyer, right? She reclaims everything back to herself. She means time. Kali is time. Right? But Kali is also the birth of form, the birth and the dissolution of form. And so in the end days, right, even as it's expressed in the book of Revelation, there's an enormous amount of turmoil and greed and ignorance and barbarism. This is form being devoured by time. That's what the deep significance of the Kali Yuga. And so we're going to look around, and according to the way it's spoken of, it's going to look as if evil is going to win. It's going to look like there really aren't any moves left. There's no hope left, right? Right? And it is game over. Of course, it isn't. it can't be, right? Because the entire thing is a dream. The whole history of humanity is a dream. Now, I've gone a little bit too far on that, but let's. What's happening now? As a matter of fact, you'll see pictures of Kali and others as well. You see this gesture, like this, the hand being held up. She has 8 hands and skulls and a drum and all sorts of different things. And one of her hands is like this. And what that means when you see it in Hindu art is, don't worry. Fear not. Right? As Christ put it, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So the only way you can recognize the insanity is that you're sane. So you got that going for you. Oh, Alessandra in Monterey, Nazarene, so nice to see you. Roberto, I watched Disney's movie Soul, and they make a difference between the gift that each one brings with them and the purpose of life. I guess I understood, but would you mind clarifying, please? Well, yes, and they would do that from the position of the separate self. Purpose is something you serve, right? Gift is something that's innate. You just have it. You've got a gift for music or words or dance or literature or numbers or math or whatever your gift may happen to be. Making things. I mean, raising children. Whatever your gift happens to be, that's innate. But our thinking is that there's this external purpose we're supposed to serve, right? And the only purpose we're supposed to serve is the purpose of self-realization. That is the only one. Other than that, the only purpose is to express the gifts. That's it. That's why you have them. What's the purpose of a dog? Well, it barks. It wags its tail. That's its purpose, right? Which is not something it has to try to do. You don't have to try to live your purpose, right? You are living your purpose. You have to recognize that you can't not live your purpose, right? That it's not something you choose. It too is inherent, right? And what is the ultimate purpose? Right? Our ultimate goal. What's the ultimate vision for our life? Reunion with God. Right? Realizing your oneness with the one. Realizing that you, in fact, are the one. That is really the purpose. And it seems as if that's external because there seems like to be a process, something we're going through, the seeking and all that to get to it. But you realize that the purpose is fulfilling itself. Right? That the entire thing has been scripted. The entire thing is unfolding. You're not actually doing any of it. And the ultimate vision is that you, the self, have simply are witnessing your own awakening. You're dreaming yourself to be in a dream so you can experience the bliss of your own awakening once again. And so your purpose of life is simply to live. This is something people can get very confused. I don't know what my purpose is. I got to find my purpose, right? And it actually causes so much suffering, right? Well, what's my because this idea that there's something external I'm supposed to serve, supposed to do, right? Do you have a gift for music? Play music. You have a gift for talking? Talk. You have a gift for cooking? Cook. That's it. That's all there is to it. Wag your tail. That's what you know how to do, whatever that may look like. And I look forward to the time when we actually have a culture and a society that doesn't force people to acquire the skills that are useful for somebody else, right? Which is what we do. All the universities and what do? All the schools, they produce people who will consume and have a particular skill that can be used so they become a resource, no more human, right? The day will come when the whole purpose of any kind of human endeavor will be to allow you the full expression of who you are, right? Without having to compromise it to make a living or anything like that. You can see that our current systems are inhuman. They do humanize and commodify everything, right? That's why it's a machine and not human. Anyway, don't get off on that. So you discover that you are living your purpose, and the more free you are, the more you come to yourself, the more you'll see that it's always been happening. You've never not been doing it. You can't not do it, just like the dog can't do anything but wag the tail and bark and run and grab stuff and catch sticks. And I watched somebody, I hadn't seen this in a long time. Somebody was out at the park. I was taking a run yesterday, and it was this morning. Yeah. And they were tossing a frisbee, and they obviously could throw it very well. And the dog was, oh my God, the dog was so happy, jumping into the air, grabbing the frisbee, coming back proud as could be. Just incredible, just being dog. Russell in Durban, South Africa. Good to see you. Dorte in Denmark. Hello, hello. Ivan in Bulgaria. John, EFT, tap, tap, tap. I may not have $1 billion, tap, 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 but it's okay. Yeah, that's right. I don't have any money. I'm broke. Oh my God. What's going to happen to me? I'm going to live under a bridge. Right? The more openness and humor you bring to it, the more spontaneity you bring to it, the easier it is. You don't want $1 billion. Too much responsibility. Yeah. You want to know that you always have the inner resources for whatever is needed in the moment. That's what we really want to know. Right? In our culture, we define that in terms of money. If I have the money, then I have the safety, I have the freedom, I have all of that. But there's all the psychological studies have shown that there's absolutely no connection between the feeling of being safe and whole and the amount of money someone has. In fact, the more money they have, the more anxiety there is. There's this need, because they're so identified with it that there's the underlying fear of losing it. That's why you see they just keep accumulating more, and then they want power, they want to control the governments, and all of that. You can see it happen. There's also studies that show the more money you have, the less they are able to relate to others less fortunate than they are, less wealthy than they are. Empathy actually begins to decrease. So you can have you can have people, dressed to the nines, shopping all day, spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on shopping, walk right past a homeless guy and not feel anything at all. Even think, well, that's, he brought it on himself. No, the capacity for empathy actually goes down. So no matter what it is, for every yin, there's a yang, right? If I get a lot of money, I will not have this set of problems, right? Not having money causes this set of problems. If I have money, then I've got this set of problems. There's no if you have problems and you think money, and you get the money and it solves these problems, you think, oh, that's it, all my problems are over. Nope. You just look over your shoulder. There's a whole new set of problems just marching up the walk, ready to say hello. Where are we? Vanyashi, hello in Norway. Chuck Ash, could all this be just a dream? Yes, not could be, it is. And to approach that, now what I'm saying, not saying is that nothing exists. People get this idea, oh, it's all a dream, then I'm gonna wake up and there's gonna be nothing, or just me. The mind takes that and it's just me, and the ego can't deal with that. So don't try to conceptualize it. Just instead start noticing and discriminating and asking yourself the question, is my perception of what I'm experiencing actually what's being experienced, or is it just my perception? And as I mentioned before, somebody can be really angry with you, right? And think you've wronged them, and you're completely innocent. You have no idea what's going on, right? What are they angry at? They're angry at an image of you they're holding in your mind. Now, you don't know anyone, really, not completely, right? We have bits of information that we have with experiences with others, and then we form an image in our mind of who they are. And that image in our mind is who we have relationship with. And moreover, that image tends to freeze. The mind likes objects, so it wants to freeze that, right? So this person, you have an image of them in your mind, which is the only thing you ever deal with, is the image in your mind. You never actually deal with them. Right? Now they've changed, right? But the image in your mind hasn't, and you're beginning to wonder what's off, right? Because there's the mind gets stuck on these pictures. This is the cause of of relationships falling, intimate relationships falling apart, romantic relationships falling apart. Because we have a picture of somebody, but the reality is the somebody is a flow. It's a constant flow of change. That form is constantly renewing itself and becoming something else. It's in constant transformation. Now, if I know that, I'm always letting go. I'm never holding. I'm always letting go. This is who they are. Well, this is how I knew them. Are they that way now? I don't know. What are they now? And there's this reality check. Now, if you do that, the beautiful thing in a human relationship, you actually have the opportunity to fall in love over and over and over and over again, moment by moment. That's how you would. It's the only way to sustain a long-term relationship. Without that, sustaining a long-term relationship is always a matter of force or convenience, right? It's much more difficult to split up than to stay together. I'll take it as it is, but you don't experience that joy. So when you realize that that who you're dealing with isn't the actual reality of them, it's an image in your mind, you can begin to see how the metaphor of that it's a dream becomes quite practical, right? To really see that doesn't mean I dismiss others. It makes me open, right? Recognizing that I want to know them as they are. Taking that a step further, you realize that what they actually are is another manifestation of the same thing you are. And so you're actually knowing yourself, because the image in your mind is a projection of yourself. And the more that integrates with what we regard as the external appearance, the more we begin to mold with it. It becomes me. I'm looking at myself. I always am. And now, who is that I? That I that's always looking at itself is not the ego. That's not the small self, personal self. That has to be the self, the infinite one, which sees nothing but itself everywhere, because there's nothing but itself. There's nothing else to see. As it says in the Upanishads, all creation is myself, for all of this has proceeded forth from me. That me is the Parabrahman. That me is, we can't talk about. It's beyond words. It's beyond description. So, does that help, Chuck, to make it much more practical? So it doesn't seem so theoretical and frankly scary. Jay, go past these stuck patterns of, on the topic of EFT, I'm not putting it down, but I've never heard from teachers like Mooji and Eckhart use the technique. And I bet these same thoughts of lack and other stuff come up. How do they go past these stuck patterns of thoughts? Little one looks more grown now. Isn't that amazing? I use it. Rupert Spira has his yoga meditations that he calls it. Francis Lucille has a bunch of different kinds of exercises that he does. With Mooji, it's just absolute straight inquiry. He'll simply say, who to whom is the lack appearing? Right? There's lack, and then there's you. The thought of lack. Who's witnessing that thought? And so it's a process of disidentification, which is in fact the ultimate. Right? Okay. I use EFT in a reconciliation and to bring people to that point where they can focus their attention there. Right? But oftentimes there's so much trauma, so much energy that is distracted, that's in the way, that I have to bring some relief. I have to bring some calm to the system. Right? Somebody who's just totally freaking out about something, you ask, well, who's really freaking out? Can you find the one that's freaking out? We'll go absolutely nowhere, right? So I've got these little tools in the toolbox that I'll pull out, right? Eckhart Tolle has plenty of exercises, even exercises about abundance and lack, and that sort of. It always comes back to the same. It always comes back to being the presence in the now, right? Where he would ask, is this happening now? But he describes the pain body and how to disidentify with the pain body as it comes up. So everybody has their way of doing it. My preference is always to go to the ultimate, to go to the absolute, to bring you back to truly looking at who you are. But if along that way I have to just tap on somebody's face to relax them a little bit, I have no problem doing that. Because remember, it's about alleviating suffering primarily, right? And ultimately, the end of suffering is when the sufferer has been seen through. Right? But the sufferer is not just a thought, it's actually embodied in the whole nervous system. Right? And being embodied in the nervous system You have to have ways in which the nervous system can actually let go of it. Once you realize that you're not that, it's still active in the nervous system. You're now in the position where you can compassionately and gently begin to bring the nervous system back home, bring the whole energy in line with the truth of who you are. Buddha tells the story of the man who, his duty, he had a man of property, he had servants and the like, and he had his duty to king and country, and he had to go off and fight a war. And he put one servant, his most important servant, in charge, and off he went. Well, he was gone a very, very long time, way longer than anybody expected, like 20, 30 years. And he comes back pretty worn, disheveled. I mean, he's just been through a 30-year war, right? And so he comes back, comes to his house, goes to open the door. It's his house, but it's locked. So he knocks on the door, and they check. Who are you? Right? He says, "No, you're not. You can't possibly be. He's gone. He's dead." Shut the door. So he can't convince them that he's actually the true master of the house. So what does he do? Does he try to force down the door? No, he says, "No, you're right. I'm just looking for a job. Is there something I can do? Right? Is there someplace I can help? I'll work in the kitchen, or I'll work in the barn." And so he just starts to work there. He starts being present, very, very gently, very, very gradually. The servants begin to recognize him. Right? Even the head servant, who didn't want to give up his position in charge, eventually recognizes that this is the master and takes the secondary role. This is the story of every story with the interloper king, right? Scar and the Lion King, right? I can't remember his name, and Scar, or Prince John and King Richard, because he was away at the war. This is kind of the false, the interloper, the false king. He's not really the king. He's just trying to play the role. That refers to the ego, or the mind, right? Because the mind's been so much in charge, while our true sense of ourself has been absent. The mind has been in charge, and all of its ego. So you are coming back to yourself, and now you too are very gently and very compassionately letting the nervous system discover that you are the true master. The true self is home, right? And it will eventually do that. And so you tap a little bit, that's fine. I don't always use it, right? But I teach it because it's a technique a lot of people can easily learn to help others, long before they're capable of doing a satsang or guiding somebody into this kind of an inquiry. There's no reason why you can't be alleviating suffering. So that's that. Little one getting more grown. I love it. Faith. Hey, my sheik. I hope you're doing well. I'd like to hear you talk about intention and whether setting one is powerful. I love you. I love you too. Oh, yes. I mean, everything we do is with intention. I mean, I had the intention to do satsang today, right? And that intention led me to, purchasing, right? Having the equipment, setting it all up, connecting the buttons together, doing a quick test. This is all coming from intention, right? Intention is something that happens. Nothing happens without it. Actually, you intend to eat, you intend to have a relationship, you intend to work, you intend to do something. The intention is really a focus of action, a focus of our energy. Now, that same intention, it is our power. It can be diffused. Oh, I tend to this and this and this and this. You're tending to things, right? And attention and intention are very close. Our intention will drive our attention, where you focus, where it gets focused. So intention is a very, very powerful thing. And what I recommend is, as I started the satsang, know what it is you treasure the most. What is it you most value? Where your treasure is, there where your heart be also. And the more you're clear about what you treasure the most, right, what means the most to you, the more focused intention goes towards it. And that intention governs the attention. Because attention can be quite unruly, right? It can be quite undisciplined. Anybody who's started to learn how to meditate knows that. 2 seconds and, you realize you've just spent 5 minutes thinking about, I don't know, ironing clothes or something. I mean, completely, right? Oh, wow. You bring the attention back. Bringing it back, what is that? That's an intention. My intention is to truly meditate, right? To use that as the opportunity to focus my attention inward, right? Which means now my intention is governing my attention. So set your intention on the highest thing you can think of. For some people, the highest thing they can think of is making a bunch of money, or having a great relationship, right? Or accomplishing something in the world. Well, that's your highest intention. That's your keep it pure, right? You're here in satsang, so my guess is your highest intention is the direct experience of yourself as you actually are, right? And so let nothing stand in the way of that. Use that as the guide, right? That doesn't mean you ignore other aspects of your life. It's just that the things that are, it will shift your whole priorities. The stuff we have to do gets done, right? But then when we're not doing that, where's the attention going? It goes to what you most value. And Nisargadatta, after meeting his guru, he said, I did what my guru told me, not because I knew anything, what was going to happen, but because I trusted him. And so I did what he said, and I kept my attention on myself every extra moment. Now, he had a little business. He was a street vendor, right? Selling BDs, which are these little, hand-rolled cigarettes. He had 4 of them at the time, right? Prosperous by lower class Indian standards in Mumbai, which is Calcutta then. And that's what he did. He did his job. He did his work, right? And every spare moment he had was dedicated to bringing his attention to that sense of being, to the I am, to the sense I am. And he was absolutely earnest about it. So everything else, he gave the time to the things he had to take care of his family, his responsibility. He had like 4 sons or something like that. And he was married with 4 kids. And then every extra moment he had went to that, went to what he cared most about. So it isn't like to the exclusion of what has to be done, but it sets the priorities. So that's where your attention goes. That's an intention, isn't it? He decided he was going to do that, and his intention was earnest. And he speaks that the thing that made the difference for him was earnestness. He says, you don't need any other skill. You don't need any special ability or intellectual capability. You don't need any special gift, just earnestness. That will open the door. That's intention, isn't it? Right? So, yes, set intentions on the highest thing for you, right? And don't let the mind judge it, right? I have this intention to have a good relationship, right? And the mind will say, well, GP says, focus on the highest, and the highest is the self. So you should be focusing on the self. The moment that voice says you should be doing anything, don't do it. Because then that's not really where your heart is. You have to go where your heart is, without judgment. If you do that, wherever your heart is, it'll become more and more purified, deeper, it'll grow, and it eventually will merge itself naturally into the overwhelming love for the self. A love for the self that will include others, and you'll find the best possible relationships as well. Relationship with your work, with family, with, a lover could be, don't know what's going to happen. We don't have to work it out. That's God's job. Our job is simply to be ourselves. Oh, Faith, you're great. Thank you. David and Elaine. Oh, talking to Jay. Must be a joy to watch consciousness shine through your young son. Both your click. That was weird. We're all still here. That was weird. All of a sudden, I swiped right instead of up when I was looking at the things, and it switched the screens, cut me off. But I'm here. Let's see. Oh, Faith said, my highest intention is to meet the beloved, to recognize him, myself, to unify with him. Beautiful. Cherish that. Yeah. Meet the beloved. And I think by that you mean the beloved. We're talking about God, the one. Great. Fantastic. Right? And if you're even talking about some guy, that's fantastic too. It doesn't matter, right? Whatever it is we're desiring, whether it seemed to be something very material, it's actually not. It's the seeking of the self. Every relationship we have is really us seeking to find the one, to find our own reality in ourselves and in everyone else. So, yeah, but in your case, it is to find the beloved. Well, the beloved is none other than yourself. Bring your attention to the sense of self you know. Right? Let that become your beloved. Let consciousness become the God you worship. Right? Seek union with it. No matter how many times it seems like that union is blocked. It's like the moth to the flame, right? It just wants to go to the flame, but there's glass around the, it's a lantern and there's glass. He slams up against the glass and falls down. He just keeps doing it again and again. Goes back to his friends. The other moth tells about the wonderful, fantastic, beautiful thing it's seen. It wants to unite with. And the other say, well, you don't look better for it. You look pretty beat up. I'm not so sure it's a great thing. Oh, no. What happens? And one day, the door to the lantern is open, and the moth becomes the flame. The river becomes the ocean. Once it becomes the ocean, we don't look and say, there's the Nile River swimming out in the ocean, or there's the Mississippi, or there's the Thames. We don't do that. They're gone. It's the ocean. Bring your attention to the I am. Thus, the self, the only self you actually know. Everybody else is a picture. The only self you actually know, this one right here. Love that. The door will open, and the beloved will reveal itself to itself. Loving itself. So beautiful. Let's see. There we go. Hi, Tatiana. So easy to fall in love with what we truly are. Recently discovered and happy to share. Ah, wonderful. Yes, you did. Yeah. That simple sense of being. Jay says it's amazing to watch how consciousness moves through the different stages of life. And you'll also notice something that isn't moving. Right? As early on, the child, the changes are just unbelievably fast. Yeah. They're just mind blowing. They eventually slow down, right? As I'm watching my granddaughter, right? But you can also see a thread of consistency. There's something there that isn't changing, and you really get to see it. The parent gets to see it. Right? There's something very present there. Something looking back at you. Right? Yeah. I actually remember. I don't remember how old she was. It was like 9 months or so. With or as an infant, right? But I remember I was taking her somewhere. I think maybe 6, 9 months. I don't remember, but it was early like that. And I always look at her. I catch her eyes. You kind of look at the way the eyes. And all of a sudden, for the very first time, our eyes locked. And there was somebody looking back. There was like wham, somebody's there. I don't know. Maybe consciousness actually just entered the body at that moment. I have no idea. Or at that moment, it woke up to something. I don't really know how it worked, but I just remember it was obvious. There was someone there who wasn't there before. And it was the most miraculous thing to behold. I was just transfixed. We both were just staring at each other. It was like amazing. I'd never seen that before. Even my own kids, I don't remember that, but I wasn't as awake. What can I say? Jill, hi GP. Thank you for the session. I feel so much more integrated and reconciled. It's my girl. All right. Cool. So good to be with you. Sophia, how would you explain that what we see in others is what we are doing? So if I experienced that, when I got aware of ways of manipulation, I could see it in someone, but I don't think that's what I do. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't mean that. When the mind takes that idea that, oh, I'm just experiencing my myself in others, the mind starts judging and comparing. Am I judgmental? Am I right? It starts to put all of that. That's all. It's not at all what we're talking about here. All that is the ego again trying to create itself, and it does that through comparing. And remember, the comparing doesn't have to be better. You don't have to come up. You don't have to come up with the long straw, right? You can come up with a short one, and the ego is quite fine with that, as long as it has a definition, a definition of itself. So, what you have to realize is that you're receiving information, right? But what we experience is perception. Okay? So, an event takes place, or a person shows up in our lives. We pick up information, and immediately our minds build a model of that person for us to have a relationship with. And it bases that model off of memory and associations and all sorts of things. So it very quickly, instantaneously creates an image. And now, over time, if there's any kind of relationship, it will refine itself. Some things didn't fit the initial model, but eventually, again, the model will hang on to it because people's behavior is relatively constant. And so, boom, it now knows who they are, but it isn't really who they are. It's fragments and projection. Right? Now, that projection doesn't mean if they're judgmental that you're judgmental, right? But it's worth looking at, isn't it? Am I judging them? Am I judging myself for being judgmental? Right? Am I thinking now, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm on the path to awakening, I'm not supposed to be judgmental, I'm supposed to be good. I'm supposed to be really, really good. Really like Queen Victoria. I'll be good. I'll be very, very good. Right? And so now the mind builds another model of appropriate behavior, and then we'll judge you on how well you do that. Right? So you simply step back. Right? Am I judging myself? And you just look at the whole picture, recognizing that you don't see really them, because when you see them, you see God. That's the truth. Right? When you really see them, you'll see through all of the attributes and characteristics and the personal things, which are temporary and transient, to the true self that is shining through them. Even shining through the person who's the most nasty, or they're nothing but conditioning. There's nothing awakened them at all. You'll still see that original innocence shining through. Right? So it isn't that kind of a comparison. We're not trying to become really, really good people. This isn't an ethical system. It's a system of exploration. It's a means of exit. It's not even a system. It's a means of exploring and coming back to recognizing that my perception of anything and anyone is only my perception. Buddha made it the first of the 4 bodhisattva practices. Become an adept at distinguishing the perceptions of your own mind. When you clearly see that I'm looking at my mind and not the thing, I liberate myself from it. And now I can open myself up to truly see. And when I truly see, what do I see? I see God everywhere. I see myself everywhere. So if you're noticing somebody manipulating, you can be grateful. Right? No, it's not. Doesn't mean necessarily you do it. Right? You can ask that, and if it doesn't resonate, okay, then you're simply seeing it. You're simply aware of that. Consciousness is aware of that. Right? So it isn't just your dream about it. There's that. Now, don't project anything on that. I say they're bad for doing it. Don't judge them because they're doing that. You simply see it. This is the way that particular nervous system is functioning. That's it. Nothing more. No big deal. Right? That's the way it's functioning. You are witnessing unconsciousness. But in your heart, you know that unconsciousness that is appearing is simply obscuring the reality, the God being that is actually shining through. And it is shining through. If nothing else, they're alive and breathing. There's somebody there. Has to be somebody there to even have manipulative behavior. So it's there. That spark of the spirit is there. That spark, while it's obscured by the conditioning, you're still seeing it. That is God. That is the truth of them. And the more you see that, the less you'll see the manipulation. What will happen is the people in your life, those characteristics will start to fall away if they're at all receptive to a higher plane of consciousness, or those people will disappear from your life. Christ, people got healed when Jesus would just walk by. Why is that? Because he saw God everywhere. There was nothing but God to him. I and my Father are one, and they are one in me. So there was never any question in his mind, and it's so powerful and true that none of that stuff even stood in his presence. Even insanity disappeared. So it was all happening within him. Become adept at distinguishing the perceptions of your own mind. It's such a powerful practice. And it is one of the 4 practices Buddha lays out for the bodhisattvas to become Buddhas. So it's a practice worth looking into. There you are, Sophie. Zensmita. Oops. Jumped ahead. Where'd you go? Down here. Where did you go? There you are. Hello from London. What does the guru dream? How is it different than the disciple's dream? The experience of the guru and the experience of the disciple are absolutely the same. There's no difference whatsoever. The guru gets a cold, he sneezes, feels uncomfortable. Right? The difference is that the guru has no relationship with it. He's not created any relationship with that. So the guru is not living in the perceptions of his own mind. He is experiencing everything directly as it is. He's experiencing God constantly. But the actual content, it's the same. Guru dreams, right? Because dreaming is just part of the functioning of life. It's part of the deal, right? But the guru knows that the dream is a dream. There's the difference. For us, the waking state, we believe to be the reality, right? The guru knows it to be a dream. And as I said before, to approach it as a dream is to just begin to realize how much of what I experience is my perception and how much is actually there. Just the willingness to look at that, to sow that seed of doubt that person isn't what I think they are, that's just my image of them. Even begin to approach that is the alarm clock in the dream. You're waking up. Right? You're waking up to the world created by the mind. You're beginning to see it, and in that seeing, it begins to dissolve. It's for the guru. It's that dream is simply dissolved. They see it just like the same stuff hits their senses or is generated by the mind, but they know what it really is. They have no illusions about it. It isn't regarded as something external to oneself. Right? The guru is always experiencing himself, herself. Even the disciple is the guru appearing. Thank you, Zantamita. Pete Brower. Hey, GP. Good to see you again here. Good to see you. Life is only getting better and better. Thank you for guiding me a few years ago. I've been living in internally bliss every day. I experience miracles every day. Wonderful. Wonderful. Wow. Great. Just don't hold on to the bliss. You are beyond even the bliss. You're beyond the miracles, right? Enjoy it, love it. Befriend it, share it, touch others. Remember, you are beyond all experience. You are incomparable, irreducible, indivisible, unknowable. You are that which is aware of bliss, which is beyond the bliss to Ananda, the ultimate peace. But absolutely wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. Jay says, Mumbai, Bombay, you're right. Thank you, Zanzmita. You're right. Mumbai was not Calcutta. It was known as Bombay, right? Sorry. I messed that up. Thank you for correcting me. Jay, I especially had recurring feelings happening time after time in certain situations, even when those situations weren't happening. Every night before bed, I would sit down and do the meditation on where did you go? On anxiety. Anxiety you did a couple months ago, but sometime down the road, I realized the ultimate truth was what I am, and realizing that what that meant is what took the long stride in helping relieve it, and realizing what that meant is what took the long stride. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but yes, the let's see here, Jay. A lot of things in between. Yes. Okay. Right. The recurring feelings are just recurring feelings, right? And everybody pay attention to this, right? Because we've all been trained to somehow want to get rid of negative feelings and hold on to positive feelings. We've all been trained to do that, right? We have this aversion, right? The fact is, there are no such thing as negative feelings. There are only feelings. The negative or positive is the mind's interpretation of it. And of course, what is a negative feeling to somebody else can be a positive feeling to somebody else. There's nothing inherent in any feeling. So when you're just standing back and watching the feelings come and go, right, you'll also watch the habits of the mind. Now, this is where you begin to master this stuff, right? You're watching, the feeling is coming up, and you're watching how the mind wants to create a story about it and form a relationship with it. That's the mind creating the ego, right? Otherwise, the ego doesn't exist. Right? The ego doesn't exist in the feeling. It doesn't exist actually even in the mind. It doesn't exist as a thing at all. Right? When and if something happens that there's a programmed response to, which triggers thoughts and a narrative about this, right? The mind begins to try to create a story, create a perception, and then form a relationship with it. I like it. I don't like it. I want more of it. I really need to get rid of this. I hate this. I'm afraid of this. Those are all the mind forming a relationship. And that I that it's speaking is the ego. It's not you. Now, if you really maintain sitting back here, watching the mind creating perceptions, because now the mind is creating a whole story, which is a perception of what in fact is a very simple, innocent event. That sense of separation, of seeing yourself as I am not that, this is coming and going, and I'm also witnessing the story come in and go, and I'm not that either, and I'm not the I that it refers to, right? You are literally, you've already awoken. You are sitting as the self, watching the activities of manifestation. Little by little, all sense of identification with that will fall away, and you will find yourself, oh, I am the self, and none of this is. So, Pete again, yeah, Pete. Okay, you made a video years ago answering my question about being unsatisfied about physical pain. It's only well-being fulfillment that I experience now. And what is true to me now? Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yes. Yes, you saw it. You saw through it. Yeah. It's not a denial of pain. You know, cut yourself, you're going to feel pain. It serves a very natural function. It's the suffering. And the suffering is all in the mind. The suffering is just resistance to whatever is being experienced. Pain is just pain. I feel it. It's the body saying something needs fixing. You go, okay, let's fix it, right? But when it goes, oh, this horrible pain, I can't stand it. It's overwhelming. What am I going to do? Oh, it just keeps coming back. That's all the mind. And it's not real. And it literally creates suffering. It creates a sense of being separate from my wholeness, which you never are and never could be. But we don't want to deny the experience of pain any more than we want to deny the experience of pleasure, because you have to do both. You have to completely deny experience, and you can't deny experience. It's not like you started it up at some point. It's just happening. It's completely effortless. Let's see. Faith. However, I wonder if it works as the ego. The person does not do anything. After surrender, I came to the conclusion that no matter what I have, if it was not after I find myself, it will be ruined by the small self. Yes, very much. When no matter what you acquire, if the ego takes ownership with it, the story it will create about it will be one that is the enhancement and perpetuation of the ego. The ego turns everything to its purposes. It commandeers that which in fact is just natural and innocent, right? Because it needs stuff, it needs recognition, it needs things in order to know what it is, because it has no inherent being. Inherent being does not need anything external to support it. It just is, and it knows that it is. Right? So it doesn't need anything. It is self-referencing. The ego is always externally referenced. So a desire comes up, the ego grabs it. It says, I need this, I need this. This way I'm going to be happy. That I is the ego. It's not you. It is just a thought. Everything works that way. The ego, so every benefit that comes into your life, every blessing, right? Little by little, the ego will creep in and try to turn it to its own purposes. This is what destroys relationships. I'm now not really just being with my beloved, loving my beloved for the way she or he is, right? The ego is there to get something, right? The romance becomes a business deal. Right? Whereas before, in the beginning, it's just pure. She can do no wrong, right? I love the way she licks stamps, right? I mean, right? We can keep that kind of thing if the ego does not try to then take a hold of what's been brought and use it for its purposes. So it is quite the mischief maker. It is quite destructive. It is not something you take lightly and say, oh, it's no big deal. It's a big deal. It's the spoiler. So, but that doesn't mean you need to just completely deny yourself everything is either, right? Okay, I'm not going to drink because that's the ego as well. It's trying to control. You can't control. You can't control who you fall in love with. You know, you can't control nothing in your life. You don't control your growing hair. You don't. What do you control? You don't control. Then you don't determine what the next thought you're going to have is. You control nothing. You don't need to, right? Beautiful, beautiful. That's good. Or Guru dreams of watching a YouTube live stream of GP and commenting the question about asking what Guru dreams. Yes, the Guru is you. What do you dream? You're the Buddha. So what does the Buddha dream? You're thinking of the Guru as something other than yourself. It appears to be something other than yourself because you simply identify with the small self. You are the Guru. It's always the Guru talking to you. You are that which is dispelling darkness, which is what the word Guru means. In Sanskrit, that which dispels darkness. Well, that's you. You are the light. It is the light of consciousness that dispels darkness. So what do you dream? That's the Guru's dream. This is how we identify with the self. The Buddha didn't want you to think of the Buddha as this person who lived 25 years ago. He kept pointing it back. It's you. You're the Buddha. So just like that person, right? Somebody asked earlier about projecting on other people and if they're manipulative. Am I manipulative? Right? No, not necessarily. No. Right? But that projection works two ways. Buddha is a projection. You don't know the Buddha. You know the image in your mind of the Buddha. And so all of those qualities that you're projecting on it, the peace, the contentment, the unfathomable, unparalleled wisdom, enlightenment, complete calm, equanimity, that's you. Just like it's the manipulative bitch. It's you. You're all of them. You're all the characters in the movie. But don't forget you're the Buddha. When you sit to meditate, it's the Buddha meditating. When you're driving your car, it's the Buddha driving your car. When you're blowing your nose, it's the Buddha blowing its nose, her nose, his nose. It's always, the sense of identity comes home, so there's nobody but the Buddha. There's nobody but God. Right? No one knows God but God. Who can see God but God? Who knows consciousness but consciousness? It's not a separate self trying to get to consciousness. You're the consciousness witnessing the antics of the separate self. Lovely. Jay said, the anxiety you did a couple of months ago. Oh, okay. That was one I got to. Positive Patty. Yeah, I love your teaching. What are your views on Neville Goddard teaching of see yourself and that of what you want be with repetition? Well, yes, it works. Neville was teaching, I think the bulk of it was like in the 70s, I think, 60s and 70s. So he's kind of an early guy, like Joel Goldsmith. You know, I think Neville started in one of the New Thought religions and then kind of went his own way, like Joel Goldsmith did. And modern Michael Beckwith started in Science of Mind, and he's done his own thing now with Agape. So yes, the New Thought is very close, right? It is very close to non-duality, but not quite. But not quite, because there's still this underlying sense of me being some. I'm the image and likeness of God. So there's some sense of there being an entity. You know, the moth is flying around the flame. It's getting its wings singed, right? But its ultimate destiny is to be that flame. And what happens in the flame? It's all flame, no moth. Poof. Right? And so the technique Neville is laying out is absolutely accurate. But notice that underneath it, before you'd ever even do that technique, there's got to be a belief in it, right? Otherwise, you won't do it. Now, which is more powerful, your belief or the technique? No technique has any power in and of its own. We think it. No mantra has a power in and of itself. Right? It's all the faith you put into it. It's the heart you put into it that gives it all of its power. But yes, from the perspective of the nervous system, if my thinking is going in this way and I rigorously and consistently shift it, I will reprogram the system, right? And it's wonderful. Your life will become more functional, right? You will get all sorts of things. You won't get the Buddha, right? That's different. To see who and what you actually are, because who you are doesn't have the need for anything. It isn't trying to acquire. It sees repetitive thoughts, but doesn't care whether they're good or bad. It has no preference for them, which of course means that they dissolve because there's nothing sustaining them, right? And whatever the thought is, it comes and it goes. And you live in this place of desireless perfection. So again, they're different levels. I'm not saying this is wrong, don't do it, that kind of stuff, like the law of attraction or Abraham Hicks. I don't say it's wrong, right? It's actually true on that level, right? The ultimate level subsumes all lesser levels. It doesn't throw anything out. You know, when you're at the top of the mountain, you can see every single path leading up the mountain and where people are on the path, can't you? Right? You distinguish one path from another. Yeah, it has different characteristics, but are they not all going to exactly the same place? Well, you know that up here. And so if somebody's taking a particular path, right, and you're up here, you can help them on that path. You don't need to say, no, you got to come over this side of the mountain. You got to be on this side. It's the same mountain. So whatever that path is, you're bringing them up the mountain. And as it goes, various techniques and stuff, you know, some of the equipment you needed at the bottom of the mountain, you don't need anymore. You know, the change Sherpas, right? And you're all the way up to the top where you don't need anything anymore. You're there. You don't need any technique. You don't need any practice. You don't need any more maps. You're home. So, oh yeah, after 2 now. Faith said, actually, I recognized recently that my longing for a loving man was my longing for the one, and that burning longing was for the one. Amen. Yes, it is. It always is. Everybody's desire is. I don't care if somebody wants to have a shiny new BMW 850i. What they really are wanting is the self. Right? We just mistakenly think that some object is going to give me a sense of happiness, and it will give me a temporary sense of relief and pleasure, but not the contentment of the self. Now, that does not rule out the possibility of a relationship with a loving man coming into your life. It does not rule it out. Right? We don't need to worry about that. That will take care of itself. You leave that field to God. And God is a metaphor for the creative intelligence of the self that manifests universes. Right? God is not an independent thing. God itself is an aspect of the self, of consciousness. Right? It is the intelligence that governs the universe. Right? And because it is an aspect of the self, you are the self. How that unfolds in human form, it doesn't matter. When you see this loving man, you'll see God. You will see the love of God, the love of yourself, for yourself, reflected back at you through the eyes of another. You'll be their beloved, and you realize it's you, the self. It is love reflecting itself in love. The non-dual singularity of it becomes, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Pete Brown, oh yes, Neville Goddard. Everything is fitting so well. Jay, let's see. Oh my goodness, I've got a whole lot here. I'm not sure I can get to them all today. Let's see. Positive Patty, I'm so grateful you've been brought into my life as my level of truth and true awareness grows. Well, I'm very grateful you're in mine. I just love the way I'm being guided to do and become the best version of I. Yes. Great. Thank you. Other practice is only a temporary relief. If, in fact, I want to disconnect from everything and just be me and not engage in anything else. Yes. And that too is the mind. Okay. The mind, and it's going, okay, now I'm going to be spiritual. I'm going to disengage with everything. Right. You just had a baby boy. I don't think you're going to be heading off to the monastery anytime soon. Renunciation of the world, disconnecting with everything, doesn't have to be you leaving, going off into the forest. The forest is a metaphor. It means going into yourself. That's all it means. Okay? Going off on the journey. The journey is inside. You disconnect your attachments. You disconnect from the false sense of identity. You renounce the world. That is the image we hold in the mind. We renounce the idea that somehow my perception is the reality. That's true renunciation. And when you do that, you have left the world. Even though, for all intents and purposes, to everybody else around you, you're even more present in it than ever. You are grounded like never before. So, and positive Patty, becoming the best version, yes. Right. And the best version of you, there's no end to it. It's not like, oh, now I'm the best version, because the moment that's there, there's another best. That is endless. That is the path of infinite unfoldment. And you already are the best version of you in this moment. Tomorrow you'll be another best version of you. But that's all there is the best version of you right here and right now. It's not something you're going to become later. It's a realization that, oh, this is it. It's always been the best version of me. It's always been me in this moment. Beautiful. Did Christ say he died for his people's sins? Yes, he did. What he meant was, right, taking on the sins of the world, right? He demonstrated the cost of the egoic mind, right? And he showed the way to transcend it. That way appears to us as, well, the cross and the crucifixion, right? Which, historically speaking, we're not even sure it actually happened. Much of that story was concocted, Pilate releasing Barabbas and all that. This custom we're supposed to have every year. Well, a custom they have every year, there'd be some record of it in history. There isn't. So it's got made up. It didn't actually happen, right? Was he crucified? Don't really know. The whole crucifixion resurrection story, right, appears in many, many, many different cultures, including Native Americans of North and South America. The Spanish priests, while Spain was conquering South America, the Spanish priests were dispatched, of course, to make them all Christian and turn them into slaves. They'd actually wrote back to the Pope that the devil must have been there before them, because he had created these their historical figures of somebody who had come down from heaven and died for their sins, and some even nailed to a tree, right, to pay the ultimate penalty. That myth was pervasive, right? And because for the priests, it has to be an absolute historical fact. It can't be mythological or metaphorical. The devil must have come here to trick them, right? So the devil came, right? Healed the sick, raised the dead, right? What's the difference? Christ said it himself. If the demons cast out demons, it's a house divided against itself. It's insane to think that. And so it's a mythological story that points to the death of the false self and the virgin birth or resurrection of the true you. And so taking on the sins of the world, what that meant was that the truth of your being, which is what Christ represents, literally takes on all of your sins. It can't be touched. It can't be killed, right? The sin or the ego, which leads to death, right? The death of happiness, the death of joy, the death of everything, right? It's not just the physical death, right? Is transmuted and transformed by the realization of the self. That realization of the self is symbolized in all sorts of mythologies as the virgin birth, as death and resurrection, as unusual births, Padmasambhava, appearing at 10 years old in a lotus. I mean, it's all sorts of different ways in which the appearing of your true nature and that true innocence, right, which can never be touched, willingly takes on the sins of the world. What's the sin of the world? Believing yourself to be something you're not. That's it. That's the sin. I mistake myself for someone I'm not. To speed up here a little bit. Thank you, G. You got me aligned. That's what I was looking for since I was 15. In fact, when I look back into the practice I did back then, there's probably been many times I was right there, yes, and didn't realize the holy ground I had stepped on. Yes. Yes, you were right there. You've always been right there. Where else have you been? Where else could you be? But here. Faith said, I came to this conclusion that the person, ego, mind, body, doesn't control anything, So I set intention to surrender the person. However, I wonder if it works as the person doesn't do anything. Yeah, you're not surrendering anything real. You're surrendering your belief in the person. And that means you're surrendering your identification with the person, which means you're opening yourself up to recognizing yourself as the self. You are the self. That's the fact. There's no shortcut in it. You are the self. The self reveals the self to the self. That's the realization. And the seeing through the person, who can see through the person? The person can't. Only the self can. The very fact that you see the ego, who's looking at it? It's not the ego looking at it. The ego can't look at itself. My hand doesn't see itself. Right? So who's looking at it? That which is not the ego, the self. The very fact that we can talk about any of this stuff, that you are looking at it, we're examining it. From what posture are you examining? What position are you in where you're examining it? You're the self. You are it. The mind just keeps saying you're not, but it doesn't change the fact. You are that. Positive Patty, watched a lot of your videos last week. I can see so much difference, even your tone from videos 4 years ago to these you do today. You really are at one with yourself. Yeah, it's true. It isn't just hair, because hair's long again, thanks to COVID. I don't want to go anywhere and get a haircut. I want to sit in that chair with a mask and all that. It's not worth it. Yeah, the whole thing is softened. My focus has changed. I used to teach a bunch of different courses about different things, and now I pretty much just focus on this. Some EFT, some inner reconciliation, meditation, but it always comes back. It always comes back to this. And I am the self, just like you. We are. I, we, Gaia, right? Pete Brower, one of the most beautiful recognitions I've had, the GPs, Abraham's, Neville's teachings, all their work is essentially the same at the core. They're pointing towards the same source, the ultimate self. Yes, everything does, even if they don't know it. The mind can think it's pointing somewhere else, but it never is. It's always pointing back to that same thing. I mean, I used to study the same kind of things that Neville taught early on in the 70s. That's when I started learning all of this stuff. And I still see the truth in it. I also see that it didn't go far enough, that the sense of a separate self was still there, right? It had become very ephemeralized, right? It was the idea of God, but there was still a me there. It took me a while. I'd had glimpses of that, right? But I couldn't explain it. Right? Remember, at this point, I'm aware of it, but I don't have any contact with Zen or Advaita or any of this kind of stuff. So I'm still kind of trying to sort it out with a me there. Even though I have moments where there was no me there was only God. But then it would come back again because I had nowhere to put that. I had no way of understanding that. Anyway, Ava said, thank you for beautiful time. Just experience truth revealing itself. What a wonderful experience. Yay. Positive Patty, thank you. Explained it beautifully. And to be I, that I already has everything required. I'm so grateful for your guidance. Oh, beautiful. Yes, it does. It does. I'm grateful for you. Robert, hope you're okay. I was wondering how do you feel about David Hawkins? I was wondering how do you feel about David Hawking? I like him. Somebody mentioned that earlier. Maybe you heard my response, Robert, or maybe you joined late. Somebody mentioned that earlier. They were asking about the scale of emotions, which he has his version of it. And Sedona method, release technique, they have their version of it. Abraham Hicks has their version of it as well. And it's very It's very valid. And but listening to him talk about his enlightenment experience is you could tell it's the real thing. Yeah, he's not. He really saw it. But that's how he did it, was simply through every thought that came up. He simply let it go, or he would say, "Give it to God." Right. That's inquiry. Right. That's inquiry wearing a different costume. Right. It was just he did not let any story ever begin. Right. And he said one thing he was working that he didn't say what it was, but he said it took him 11 days straight. It wasn't 24 hours letting go of it, but it took 11 days before it finally let go. Right. So, but he reestablished a very different relationship with feelings and thoughts that come up. Thought identification, they come up. No story. You see them. You don't identify. Just don't try to get rid of them. That's not what letting go means. It means you just simply take your hands off. Right? It's exactly what Mooji teaches. This stuff is coming up. It's what I teach. It's the same stuff. So he's the genuine deal. Yeah. Thank you so much, your lovely satsang. You're welcome, Penny. Dave, thank you, GP, for another deep, insightful satsang. Communing with the truth, joy, and peace. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. GP, beautiful. Thank you. Robert, can you explain about surrendering emotions? Same way. Exactly the same way. An emotion comes up. You'll notice that when an emotion comes up, it never comes up alone. Thoughts and emotions are always together. And I mean, both are mind, right? There's always a story about the feeling, the emotion that arises, right? Or a thought can arise and trigger an emotion. But if a thought is there and there's no feeling, it doesn't even get your attention, right? It has to generate something, right? So there's a connection there because we feel life. We don't think life, we feel it. And so the two are actually one. So when a feeling comes up, you want to get to the sensation itself, right? And not the story about it. You'll notice that the mind's got a whole story about it, an identification with it, and I want to get rid of it, or where did it come from? It's going to analyze it. You notice the mind doing that, and you just there with the feeling, and you just let go. You give it to God. God, take this feeling. I into thy hands I commit my spirit. It's a very deep and beautiful sentiment you can bring to it. But the surrendering doesn't mean you surrender to it. You surrender it, right? And if it stays, right, you're surrendered, right? Once you give it to God, what God does with it is up to God, right? If it wants it to, if she wants to hang around a bit, what do I've surrendered it, right? At this point, I no longer have a relationship with it. I'm no longer trying to control it. If it's still in the field of my view, the field of my experience, it's not my doing. I have let it go. You follow that? It's a quick version of it. Thanks, says Anne. Lisa gives me blue hearts. Jay, LOL, definitely can't, and I don't want to. Don't need to. I need to introduce them to you, G. They'll naturally derail into the world and need to be brought back to who they really are. Yeah, they will. yeah, they will. Yeah. The prodigal son always comes home. Thank you, GP. Beautiful satsang. When it finishes, I will listen to it again. Although it's 11:15 where you are, Snezalea. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for staying with me this whole time. It's really wonderful. And isn't it nice that my scenery isn't changing all the time? And don't forget, join the private Facebook group, which is Facebook.com/groups/GP Walsh. Easy to remember, because I'll be doing the 10 days of tapping starting tomorrow. So enjoy the rest of your day or night or evening. And until next time, all my love to you. Namaste.